Imam Shafi'i was born almost certainly in the town of Gaza in Palestine. So Imam Shafi'i grows up in this rather poor environment, but with this noble lineage. And quite often you find some of the best people in the Islamic world are like that. They're noble, though they recognize that they are called to emulate the nobility of their ancestors, but they're not spoiled by wealth, which is the lot of the majority of people who have been given wealth. So he's in the city of Mecca, and he's an orphan. His mother directs him to the circles of knowledge. By the age of 7, we're told, by Imam al-Bayhaqi, he'd memorized the Quran. By the age of 10, it seems that he had memorized at least one of the versions of the Muwatta of Imam Malik. And he used to love hadith and would go to the circles of the muhaddithin and memorize hadith just from hearing it. He couldn't afford books or to study in any other way. He just heard and heard and heard until he memorized the hadith. And then, when he had to write things, he would write the hadith on pieces of broken pottery or on old pieces of leather or parchment. And it said that because he was poor, he couldn't afford to buy writing materials, so he used to hang around at the diwan of the governor of the city of Mecca, asking for any old pieces of parchment or scrap. He had a strong inclination to speaking really classical, refined Arabic. He went out to the desert and sought out and kept the company of the tribe of Hudayl. Why Hudayl amongst all the hundreds of Arabic tribes? Because they were the ones with the reputation for the purest and the most chaste Arabic. And so he spent time with them, according to some scholars, 10 years in the desert with Hudayl. So according to Ibn Kathir, great Shafi'i historian, he spends 10 years in the desert, and there, as well as perfecting his speech, he learns horse riding and also learns archery, and he becomes famous for rimaya, for archery. So later on in life he says this: كانت همتي في شيئين. My focus, my love, my preoccupation was on two things: في الرمي وفي العلم, in archery and knowledge. فصرت في الرمي بحيث أصيب من 10. I was so good at archery that I would hit the target 10 times out of 10. فسكت عن العلم. But then he wouldn't talk about his scholarship. He's humble. He's not going to say that he's a great scholar. فقالوا بعض الحاضرين, and one of those who were present said, أنت والله في العلم أكثر منك في الرمي. And he said, by Allah, you are more accurate in your scholarship than you are in archery. So he's a teenager, he's in the city of Mecca. Most of the teaching at the time is happening around the Kaaba in great circles of hadith and fiqh. And he studies in particular under somebody called Muslim bin Khalid al-Zanji, apparently an African scholar, who authorizes him when he's reached the age of 15 to give fatwas. Of course, in Islam, to have an opinion that you give publicly, you have to be authorized to do that. So at the age of 15, Imam al-Shafi'i is being authorized to give fatwa in the shadow of the Kaaba itself. But that wasn't enough. You might think to give fatwa is about as far as it can go, but he wanted more. The governor of Najran, which is the northernmost city in the Yemen, comes to Medina, and he'd heard of a Shafi'i and employs him. So he goes back to Najran, and as a judge he becomes one of those awkward individuals, and we saw this in the case of Sahnun last time, refusing to allow flattery, refusing to accept special pleading, and refusing to accept bribes of any kind. So he very soon makes enemies, particularly since the governor, the Abbasid governor of the region, is known as Zalum, is really unjust, and he's always trying to get the judge to bend to his wishes. And not only does Shafi'i refuse to do this, but he actually criticizes him publicly. The governor's outraged and wants to get rid of him. And the way he does this is to invent charges against Imam Shafi'i. So the governor writes to the Khalifa in Baghdad, claiming that Shafi'i is from the Shia. And of course the fact that he has this Hashimi lineage makes that perhaps a little bit less far-fetched. But still, a governor writing about a relatively unknown person from the Muttalibi Hashimi lineage in a Yemeni city, writing to the Khalifa. That's a dangerous letter. And the governor does write of Shafi'i, يَعْمَلُ بِلِسَانِهِ مَا لَا يَقْدِرُ عَلَيْهِ الْمُقَاتِلُ بِسَيْفِهِ. With his tongue, he achieves that which a warrior couldn't achieve with his sword. This is what they're worried about. They're worried about people preaching in a way that's subversive of the Abbasid political order. So he gets the word that he has to go to Baghdad. He's more or less under arrest with 8 other revolutionaries. He's taken off to the city of Baghdad to appear before the Khalifa. One after the other 8 are, the historians tell us, executed.
إليك إله الخلق أرفع رغبتي وإن كنت يا ذا المن والجود مجرما ولما قسى قلبي وضاقت مذاهبي جعلت الرجا مني لعفوك سلما فما زلت ذا عفو عن الذنب لم تزل تجود وتعفو منة وتكرما إليك إله الخلق أرفع رغبتي وإن كنت يا ذا المن والجود مجرما ولما قسى قلبي وضاقت مذاهبي جعلت الرجا مني لعفوك سلما فما زلت ذا عفو عن الذنب لم تزل تجود وتعفو منة وتكرما ألست الذي غذيتني وهديتني ولا زلت منانا علي ومنعما عسى من له الإحسان يغفر زلتي ويستور أوزاري وما قد تقدما فإن تعفو عني تعفو عن متمرد ظلوم غشوم لا يزاهل ماثما وإن تنتقم مني فلست بآيس ولو أدخلوا نفسي بجرم جهنم إليك إله الخلق أرفع رغبتي وإن كنت يا ذا المن والجود مجرما ولما قسى قلبي وضاقت مذاهبي جعلت الرجا مني لعفوك سلما فما زلت ذا عفو عن الذنب لم تزل تجود وتعفو منة وتكرما فصيحا إذا ما كان في ذكر ربه وفي ما سواه في الورى كان عجما يقول حبيبي أنت سؤلي وبغيتي كفى بك للراجين سؤلا ومغنما همي عظيم من قديم وحادث، وعفوك يأتي العبد أعلى وابسما. إله الخلق أرفع رغبتي، وإن كنت يا ذا المن والجود مجرما، ولما قسى قلبي وضاقت مذاهبي، جعلت الرجاء مني لعفوك سلما. فما